Welcome to the Mycitizenagency channel. If you're just starting to search for your ancestors' records, the main question that quickly arises is, where exactly should you look for? Many people know that family records may be stored in archives, civil registry offices, or church records, but it's not always clear where to start or where you're most likely to find the record you need. In this video, we'll break down which documents to look for and where, how archives differ from civil registry offices, when church records can be helpful, and why choosing the right search path can save you a lot of time. Searching for family documents is especially important if you are reconstructing a family tree, confirming family origins, the birthplaces of ancestors, marriages, name changes, or other legally significant facts for immigration procedures. The first thing to understand is that you shouldn't search for everything indiscriminately, but rather for a specific fact about a specific person. The more precisely you define your objective at the start, the higher the likelihood of getting results faster. For example, this could be the birth of a great-grandfather, the marriage of a great-grandmother, the death of a relative, the family's residence in a specific town, a baptismal record, or information about a name change. In other words, the search should always be based not on the general idea of finding information about the family, but on a clear and verifiable fact. The more initial information you have, the easier it is to structure your search. It's helpful to gather everything that has been preserved in the family beforehand. Old certificates, passports, employment records, military documents, signed photographs, letters, certificates, statements, and even family notes. Don't underestimate the value of relatives' oral recollections, especially if they remember names, dates, places of residence, or family stories that can point you in the right direction. Sometimes a single date, an old surname, or the name of a town becomes the key to all further work. It is precisely these details that often help determine where to turn next to an archive, the Civil Registry Office, or to search for information in church records. Before starting your search, it's important to determine three key things: exactly who you're looking for, what event you're searching for, and where it presumably took place. At first glance, this seems obvious, but it's precisely at this stage that confusion most often arises, leading to queries that are too general and yield no results. It is important to understand exactly which relative you are referring to, what event needs to be confirmed: birth, marriage, death, baptism, a name change, or residence in a specific place, and which town or region this might be associated with. Even a rough understanding of this information helps narrow down the search significantly. This is precisely what determines where to go next: the Civil Registry Office, an archive, or a church institution. The more precisely you define your starting point, the easier it will be to map out the entire rest of your search route. The Registry Office is the first place where, in many cases, it is truly worth starting your search. This is where civil status records are kept: birth, marriage, divorce, death, and name changes. If the event you are looking for occurred in a relatively recent period, especially in the 20th century, there is a high probability that the record you need is located in the Registry Office system. This approach is particularly relevant when you need to confirm a basic legal fact about a person: date of birth, marriage, death, or a change in personal information. It is precisely this information that often serves as the starting point for further research, because it allows you to trace back to earlier generations and search for additional documents. When submitting a request, you will typically need documents confirming kinship, a copy of your passport, precise or at least approximate information about the person, and a properly drafted request. The more specific details you provide up front, the higher the likelihood that the search will be successful and will not require additional clarification. Very often, the main mistake is making the request too general. For example, "Please find my great-grandfather." This format usually yields no results because staff lack sufficient information for a precise search. There may be several people in the system with the same last and first names, and without a reference to a date, place, and specific event, finding the right record is practically impossible. It is much more effective to provide as many details as possible right away: full name, approximate date of the event, place of registration, and the names of parents or a spouse if known. The more precise the request, the lower the likelihood of receiving a generic response with no results, and the higher the chance that the search will be conducted using the correct parameters on the first try. It is also important to remember that old records may eventually be transferred from the registry office to state archives. Therefore, if a record is not found at the registry office, this does not necessarily mean that the document has been lost. It is quite possible that it is simply already stored in the archival collection, in which case you will need to continue your search in a different direction. Archives are the primary source for more in-depth historical research. It is there that you can find old civil registry books, census records, census sheets, family lists, documents on resettlement, military registration, education, property, and many other records. Unlike the registry office, which records specific civil status acts, the archive allows you to see a broader picture and trace your family's history across different periods. If you need to confirm your family's origins, the nationality of your ancestors, where your family lived during a specific period, or reconstruct the sequence of generations, archives are usually indispensable. It is archival documents that often help connect several generations and uncover information no longer found in later registration records. Archival research is particularly important when the goal is not just to find a single document, but to reconstruct the entire family line. One document found can lead to another, and then to new information about parents, children, places of residence, and family relationships. Therefore, archives become a key step in serious family history research. Archives can be state, regional, municipal, departmental, or historical, and one of the main challenges lies in correctly determining which specific archive holds the desired collection. In practice, this is not always obvious, because documents pertaining to a single family or a single settlement may be located in different institutions depending on the period, the type of record, and the history of how the materials were transferred. Here, it is important to consider not only modern geography but also historical geography. A settlement may have changed its name, administrative affiliation, and even its boundaries, and documents may have been transferred to another archive over time. Because of this, searching by the modern name of a city or region does not always yield results, even if the relevant information has indeed been preserved. Therefore, archival research almost always requires an understanding of the historical context. You need to consider how the administrative division changed, to which county, district, or region the settlement belonged during the relevant period, and where the documents might have ended up subsequently. It is precisely these nuances that often determine whether a search will be successful or not. The most commonly searched for documents in archives include parish registers, census records, confessional records, household lists, resettlement files, court documents, military records, resident lists, educational institution files, and notarial deeds. Each of these sources may contain important information about a person's family composition, place of residence, social status, age, family ties, and life events. Archival research is particularly valuable because it allows you to go beyond a single document. For example, a single birth record can help you later find information about the parents' marriage, siblings, and the previous generation of the family. In other words, a single document often serves as a starting point for reconstructing several branches of family history at once. This is precisely where the main value of archival work lies. It helps not just to confirm a single fact, but to gradually build an entire chain of evidence and connections between generations. The more carefully you work with the materials you find, the greater the chance that even a single record will lead you to new important information. When it comes to earlier generations, church records become a key source. These can include books of baptisms, weddings, funerals, confessions, parishioners, and other religious events. For many families, these documents are the only way to trace back to the desired generation and confirm important facts from their family history. In many cases, it was the church that kept records of births, marriages, and deaths long before the advent of modern civil registries. Therefore, if a record cannot be found at the Civil Registry Office and the event dates back to an earlier period, it is definitely worth checking church records. Very often, it is there that information is preserved that can no longer be found in later government sources. Church records are also valuable because they often contain additional details. The names of parents, godparents, the family's place of residence, social status, and other data that help not only confirm an event, but also connect several generations. This is precisely why church records often become one of the most important sources in genealogical and documentary research. The most valuable for genealogical research are the parish registers. It is in these records that dates, the names of the child and parents, the family's social status, place of residence, and sometimes additional information that helps confirm kinship were recorded. For many families, such records form the basis for all further research, as they allow one to precisely link a person to their parents, place of birth, and specific parish. Confession records are also very useful. They allow you to see the composition of the family by year and confirm the family's residence in a specific parish. This is especially important in cases where you need not just to find a single event, but to trace how the family lived in a certain area over several years. The value of such documents lies in the fact that they help reconstruct not only specific dates, but also the overall picture of family history. Thanks to parish registers and confession records, you can see the connections between generations, clarify the family composition, and gain additional points of reference for further research in archives and other sources. It is important to understand that church records are not always kept directly at the church. Very often they were transferred long ago to state or regional archives where the main historical collections are located. Therefore, the search for such documents should not be limited to contacting the active parish or religious institution. You should search for these records in two directions simultaneously, through church institutions and through archives. This is particularly important because the fate of old records could have varied. Some documents may have remained on site, some may have been transferred to an archive, and others may have ended up in a different collection, depending on the period and location. If the church is still active, it is sometimes possible to obtain useful information about the fate of the old records and find out exactly where they were transferred. Even if the documents themselves are no longer kept at the church, such information can serve as an important starting point and help determine the correct direction for further research much more quickly. In practice, the logic usually goes like this. If the event is relatively recent, it's best to start with the Civil Registry Office. If we're talking about an earlier period, the archive becomes the primary focus of the search. And if your ancestor lived at a time when the church was the primary registrar, then it is especially important to look for baptismal and parish records. This approach helps you avoid wasting time on haphazard inquiries and immediately follow the most likely route. Essentially, the choice of starting point depends on the date of the event, the type of document you need, and the record-keeping system in use during that period. But in practice, the search very often proceeds along several paths at once. For example, one document might be found at the Civil Registry Office, and the next step will lead you to an archive or church records. One document found almost always opens the way to the next, and this is precisely how a complete chain of information about the family is gradually built. It is very important not to give up after the first not found response. Such a response does not mean that the document does not exist or that further searching is pointless. In practice, it simply means that no record matching your request was found at that specific location. There could be several reasons. The request may have been sent to the wrong institution, it may have contained too little source data, the wrong search period may have been selected, or the historical movement of documents between civil registry offices, archives, and church institutions may not have been taken into account. Furthermore, even the spelling of a surname, first name, or place name can be significant. This is precisely why consistency and a willingness to explore multiple avenues are so important when searching for ancestral records. Very often, a setback at one stage does not end the search, but merely suggests where to go next to eventually find the desired document. One of the most common mistakes is starting a search without preparation. When there isn't even a minimal amount of initial information gathered, requests become vague, and the search takes longer and is more difficult than it could be. The second common mistake is sending a request that is too general. If the inquiry lacks specific details about a person, event, time, or place, the likelihood of getting a useful result decreases significantly. The third mistake is searching in only one place and not considering other possible avenues. If a record isn't found in one institution, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist at all. Documents may have been transferred to an archive, stored in another collection, or come from church sources. The fourth mistake is failing to account for older spellings of a surname, first name, or place name. Such variations are very common in historical documents, and they are often what prevent you from finding the right record on the first try. The fifth mistake is expecting a single letter to solve the entire search. In practice, working with ancestral documents almost always requires consistency, attention to detail, and an understanding of the record-keeping system. The calmer and more systematic you are in your search, the higher the likelihood of getting the result you need. If you are searching for ancestral documents, it is important to remember a simple rule. Civil Registry Offices help with records from later periods, archives are needed for in-depth historical research, and church records often become the primary source for earlier generations. The more precisely you define the event, location, and time period, the higher the chance of finding the document you need quickly and using it later for legal and immigration procedures. If you don't know where to start in your specific situation, or if you've already received rejections and don't know how to proceed, submit a request for a free consultation via the link in the description. We'll review your situation, create a personalized immigration plan, and prepare a complete set of documents to successfully obtain citizenship in one of the EU countries. We work on a one-on-one basis, taking into account your goals, your lifestyle, and your specific situation. Thank you for watching this video. If you're interested in this topic, subscribe to the channel and feel free to ask questions in the comments. We regularly publish program reviews, answer frequently asked questions, and share important news about immigration law and life in the EU. Your journey to Europe begins with the first step. Mycitizenagency is here for you every step of the way.